Faith in the fire, the Afrikaner struggle and survival. Since they are in the limelight now, let's see what makes them so resilient. From the very beginning, faith has sat right in the marrow of the Afrikaner people. It's not just something that drifted into their lives like other customs and habits. It's been a compass, a backbone, a fire that kept burning whether the world around them smiled or spat. Without it, maybe there wouldn't have been an Afrikaner nation at all. It is this faith that pulled them through one impossible struggle after another, and it is that same faith that will carry them through the storms that bruise them today. Just take a few seconds and like this video and subscribe to this channel. It's free and helps a lot. Feel free to leave a comment. Let's continue. When the first Afrikaners left the Cape during the Great Trek, they weren't just running from British laws and taxes. They believed, deeply, that they were called to step away and carve out their own land where they could live by their values. They saw themselves as modern Israelites, crossing their wilderness. The land beyond the mountains and the rivers wasn't just grass and stones. To them, it was a promised land. They crossed dry plains, thick bush, rivers filled with crocodiles, sickness that wiped out families, and endless attacks from hostile groups who didn't want newcomers on their turf. And yet, over and over again, small groups of Voortrekkers survived odds that would have finished most other peoples. They didn't do it because they had more guns or more men. They did it because they believed God had his hand over them. One of the clearest signs of this, even to outsiders, is what happened at the Battle of Blood River. There were just 470 Voortrekkers facing tens of thousands of Zulu warriors. By any calculation, it should have been a slaughter. But those Voortrekkers made a covenant. They promised that if God saved them, they'd remember it forever and build a church to honor him. And what happened? They crushed the Zulu forces without even losing a single man in battle. People can argue about tactics and lagers all they like, but for the Afrikaners, it was simple. God heard their promise and showed his hand. There are other tales that Afrikaner families whispered across tables and campfires too. Legends of bullets that missed when they should have killed. Stories of wagons that somehow crossed rivers swollen from weeks of rain without a single ox drowning. When the siege of Ladysmith dragged on during the Anglo-Boer War, people spoke of how thin, starving Boer fighters still found strength to hold the line for months. Just folklore, some might say. Yet it stitched itself deep into the soul of the people. Another moment still spoken of in quiet voices is the Battle of Elandslaagte. Outnumbered Boer fighters faced a British force set on cutting through them like a knife. The Boers fought back with such sharpness and courage that they sent the British packing in confusion and retreat. Some say they saw visions of riders in white riding ahead of them that day. Just tales? Maybe. But those who were there spoke of it as more than luck. Then there's the miracle of the siege of Kimberley. Boer forces had surrounded the diamond town for months, cutting it off from supplies and food. Yet even when British relief columns broke through, many Boer fighters slipped away through impossible gaps and narrow escapes, as if unseen hands were guiding them. They would regroup and fight on elsewhere. It was a pattern that repeated often in that war. That feeling, that they were under God's protection, didn't fade. Just a few years earlier, on the 27th of February, 1881, at Majuba Hill, the British Empire had come down hard on the Boers, determined to snuff out the little independence they had built in the Transvaal during the First Anglo-Boer War. The British had more money, more soldiers, and more weapons. Yet at Majuba, a ragtag force of Boer farmers wiped out a much larger British army sitting on top of a fortified hill. Again, people today might say it was clever shooting or smart footwork. But the Boers didn't think that way. To them, it was a reminder that no empire, no matter how shiny and polished, could stand against a people whose faith ran deep. Faith didn't only show itself in victories. It showed itself just as much in suffering. During the Second Anglo-Boer War, the British burned farms, salted fields, and herded Afrikaner women and children into concentration camps. Nearly 28,000 Boer women and children died there. Most nations would have broken under something like that. But even in those camps, Afrikaner women held prayer meetings. They sang psalms. They taught their children who they were and where they came from. They passed on stories of Blood River and Majuba. They buried their dead with hymns. Somehow, under all that grief and humiliation, they didn't lose their spirit. They might have lost the war on paper, but they didn't lose their soul. That is why, only a few decades later, Afrikaners rose again and took political control in 1948. No one expected a small, battered farming people to come back from those ashes, but faith made it happen. And running like a thin gold thread through their history is the figure of Sina van Rensburg. His visions of the future, many of which Afrikaners believe came true, gave comfort and warning. Whether or not one sees them as divine prophecy or just folklore, the fact is many clung to his words, especially when the road ahead was dark. His warnings about future struggles and eventual revival shaped how many Afrikaners saw their place in God's plan. Fast forward to today, and the Afrikaners sit in a different kind of battle. Farm murders continue to rip through rural communities. It's not just crime, anyone honest will admit there's more to it. Many of these attacks come with torture and brutality that looks more like hatred than robbery. Old people are tied up, burned with irons, children assaulted, families wiped out on the same land their forefathers tamed with blood and sweat. These murders don't make big international headlines. Politicians speak of land reform but stay quiet about the killing of those who feed the country. That silence cuts deep. There are voices that say the Afrikaner must disappear now, that their time is done. Some say their language is outdated, their culture irrelevant, their history offensive. Affirmative action laws and BEE policies close doors to young Afrikaners, no matter how skilled they are. Afrikaans universities are squeezed, and Afrikaans schools are pushed to switch languages. Statues and monuments tumble, with little respect for what they meant. Every sign seems to say, "You are not wanted here anymore." But here's the thing, if history teaches anything, it's that writing off the Afrikaner is premature. The same God that carried them through Blood River, Majuba, the concentration camps, and guided Sina's visions hasn't left. Even now, there are Afrikaners rebuilding community networks, starting private schools, replanting the values their parents taught them. Small Platland towns are coming alive with people who haven't given up. There's a quiet movement of return to faith, less shouting, more building. Many might not like this idea. Some get uncomfortable when Afrikaners talk about God and calling and survival in the same breath. They call it arrogance or outdated nationalism. But facts don't bend for feelings. History shows, when Afrikaners lean into their faith, they stand taller and last longer than anyone expects. They survived the British Empire, scorched earth, concentration camps, world wars, international boycotts, and a transition in 1994 that could have wiped them out culturally. Today's farm attacks, policy discrimination, and cultural erasure are just another chapter. Yes, it is hard. Yes, it feels like the walls are closing in. But for a people who've crossed worse deserts, lost more battles, and buried more loved ones, these things are not enough to finish the story. As long as faith lives, real faith, not just church on Sundays but the deep, burning belief that they are not abandoned, then the Afrikaners will not only survive but surprise the world again. Just folklore, some might scoff. Define intervention, others might shrug. Let them. History has a strange way of bending in favor of those who refuse to lie down. And if faith has anything to say, the best chapters are still waiting to be written. Thank you for watching. What is your opinion? Please leave a comment and remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel.